Washington Post political reporter Jenna Johnson now joins us from their D.C. newsroom. And Jenna, of course, you've been following Donald Trump throughout this campaign season with 2 weeks to go then until Election Day. What do you make of this latest line of attack from Donald Trump?
Well, I'm sure his staff is happy that he finally has a line of attack that's related to policy and not to his own personal controversies. Listen, every time I go to a Donald Trump rally and I talk to people in the audience, the Affordable Care Act, or as they like to call it, Obamacare, is one of the top things that they complain about. They feel like their premiums have gone up. They feel like it's just more expensive to go to the doctor. Whether it actually is or not, a lot of experts disagree on that. But there's just this wide feeling across America that this isn't working for them, that it's gotten too expensive. And with 2 weeks to go until the election, Donald Trump is finally trying to tap into that anger.
13 days, again, to make that case. Jenna, as you pointed out, in a recent piece for The Post, Donald Trump has refused to this point to campaign on Sundays. But 2 days ago, there he was at a rally, even as he makes the case repeatedly that polls are dark and phony and that, in fact, his campaign is in front. It would seem that it's shifts such as that suggest something else entirely.
Yeah, well, I mean, he said last week at a rally that he doesn't want to leave anything on the table, that he doesn't want to look back and say, I should have held one more rally in North Carolina. I regret not doing that. He doesn't want to regret anything. And so he has really loaded up his schedule. You know, the last few days he's been hitting, 3, 4, 5 different things each day, trying to just get out there and do it. But his demeanor on the campaign trail is different than it was when I first started covering him a year ago. A year ago, he had nothing to lose. He was this joyful candidate who you could just tell loved campaigning, loved being out there. And on Sunday night, we were in Naples, Florida, and you could tell that it wasn't quite fun anymore for him because there's a lot for him to lose at this point.
You could be referring to many different things. To what are you specifically referring?
Well, I mean, the election. He, is trying to become president of the United States, and all of the different polls, most of the different polls are showing that that's just not going to happen. There are also questions about if this is going to take a toll on his personal brand or not. Today and then tomorrow, he's doing events at properties that he owns, highlighting employees at the properties that he owns. I know behind the scenes, there are worries that what has happened on the campaign trail could also hurt his personal business.
To that end, it is believed, has been laying the groundwork for, or planting the seed, really, that perhaps the election could be stolen, that the election itself is rigged, as a way perhaps to give himself somewhere to land come November 9th. But I want to play this a bit of sound from the event that he held today in Doral. He was asked by a reporter, again, whether or not he believes the election will be stolen from him. The audio is not great here. We did subtitle it, but take a listen and I'll get your thoughts on the other side.
Don't think the election should be stolen from you? Tell him to look at his tape when he was running 8 years ago.
Now, he said, when asked that question, ask Obama, tell him to look at his tape when he was running 8 years ago. Now, Jenna, we believe that Donald Trump there is referring to a piece of tape dating back to 2008 of President Obama at a campaign event when he was running for his first term in Ohio. I want to take a listen to that.
I would just like to know what you can say to reassure us that this election will not be rigged or stolen.
I come from Chicago, so I want to be honest. It's not as if it's just Republicans who have monkeyed around with elections in the past. Sometimes Democrats have too. You know, whenever people are in power, they have this tendency to try to, tilt things in their direction. That's why we've got to have I believe, a voting rights division in the Justice Department that is nonpartisan.
Again, I know if you couldn't actually see the video, he was at a town hall event. Jenna, he was strolling while making his case at an outdoor event. What did you make of the president's comments, given what it is we have been discussing certainly these last 2 to 3 weeks?
Well, there's no disagreement over if voter fraud happens or not. The question is over, does it happen often enough that it impacts the results of elections? A lot of the documented cases that we've seen are very few. The numbers do not seem to add up in a way that would impact elections. And, you know, for years, it's not just Donald Trump that has talked about, you know, the election fraud happening and things like that. This is something that Democrats and Republicans have worried about. This is something that people from both parties have worked on and have, you know, tried to set up ways to make sure that fraud isn't happening. The difference here is that Donald Trump is going to rally after rally after rally and saying, if I lose, it's because of voter fraud. It's because, you know, this is rampant and it's happening all over the place and it's totally skewing the results of our elections, and election results cannot be trusted, and that I'm willing to challenge them. And that's a very strong assertion, and one that Republicans and Democrats have been really pushing back against, saying this is the United States. Yes, there are problems here and there. We're addressing those problems, but our elections are trustworthy. Our election results should stand.
To your point, the idea of widespread being, there were over 1 billion votes cast between the years 2000 and 2014, and there have been 31 instances of voter fraud that have been verified. To that point, you mentioned the idea, Jenna, that he does have so much to lose. He, once again today, poo-pooed the idea of Trump TV, that perhaps he will look to commoditize this run in a media venture to follow the election. But you mentioned even his personal mien there on Sunday night. Do you believe that he believes that he's going to lose?
You know, I can't speak for him. I can't reach into his mind and know exactly what he's thinking. But he knows how polls work. He probably knows polls better than any candidate who has ever run for president. He just studied these polls so very closely during the primaries and touted them at that point. He knows where this is headed. He's even, you know, briefly acknowledged that he's behind. His staff has acknowledged that he's behind. So I don't think that I really don't think that he doesn't know what's happening right now. He, like a lot of politicians, is just trying to spin this in a way to keep his followers excited, in hopes that something could change in the next 2 weeks.
And as we have seen, well, with regard to the daily dumps from WikiLeaks and all the rest, 2 weeks is an awful long time in this election cycle, to be sure. Jenna Johnson of the Washington Post, as always, very much appreciate your insights.
Yeah, thanks for having me.